So let's get started, and I'm going to suggest that we spend a few minutes before we do any moving just to take a few moments to settle and kind of gather our attention. So you could do that sitting if you're more comfortable sitting, or you could do it lying down on the ground if you prefer to do that. If you are lying on the ground, it's probably a good idea to have a cushion under your head or a blanket under your head. Maybe you might like to bend your knees, or you might like to have a cushion underneath your knees. I'm just going to grab myself something to sit on. And in this time that we're just going to offer ourselves to begin to settle and focus, you might find that it feels good to close your eyes as we do that. It can help to bring your attention inwards a little bit more. But you might prefer to keep your eyes open. So try both, see what feels best for you. And knowing that you can always change your mind. So as we practice, you can really make this your own. And giving yourself a little bit of moment just to come into contact with the ground. So whatever position you're in right now, maybe shifting your body a little bit so you can really feel the earth underneath you. Noticing if you might invite yourself to drop a little bit more into that contact so the earth can really hold you. And you might notice that as you are able to kind of offer yourself a little bit more into that support, so a little bit more weight comes into some parts of the body, you might notice a little bit of lightness and space opening up in other places. So then beginning by bringing some attention to the sounds around you right now. So you might hear my voice, might be other sounds in the room. And there might be other sounds further away. Perhaps you can hear birds or cars. And we're going to do our best right now to see if we can find a way of being with the sounds that allows us just to rest in the center. The sounds come and go. We can't control them. We don't need to hold on to any of them. We don't need to push any of them away. Just resting in the center as the sounds come and go. And you might notice that lots of other things call for your attention. So there might be thoughts or feelings, memories or body sensations. That's totally normal. So we don't need to push any of those things away. But by choosing an anchor for ourselves, and we're anchoring in sound right now, it's just something that we can keep coming back to. Just something to return to. And in a moment, we're going to shift our attention a little bit more inward. So we're focusing more on the body and the breath. But if you notice at any stage during the practice that you become kind of really distracted or agitated, or it doesn't feel good to be focusing on the body, you can always experiment with coming back to that focus on the breath, to focus on the sound. That can be a really nice way to kind of ground yourself in what's happening now, even if the body stuff feels like it might be a bit much right now. But as you're ready, you can bring some awareness in towards the body and just noticing again that sense of resting on the earth. Noticing if perhaps that connection and restedness might feel stronger on the in-breath or the out-breath. So sometimes for me, the out-breath can be a real opportunity to drop a little bit more into that support. And becoming aware of your breath wherever you feel it in the body right now. And noticing if for you this morning it might be useful to bring your hands into contact with your body anywhere. So often when I'm focusing on the breath, I might rest my hands somewhere on the heart or the belly to get a sense of the movement of the breath in the body. And we don't need to be breathing in any particular way right now. So we're just noticing how it feels to breathe. Sometimes the breath is really smooth and easy. Sometimes it might be sticky and held. And if you do notice any sensations of kind of stickiness or stuckness, you could experiment with just resting a hand gently on the part of the body where you feel that. So often around around the diaphragm, the base of the ribs is a place that my breath can get a little bit tight and held. And that tension often responds really positively to a bit of gentle touch. So just resting a hand lightly can sometimes offer a bit of ease. And we don't need to kind of come at that with a sense of how the breath should be. It might not change. But we can be really curious and interested in the ways that the breath responds to what we're doing with our bodies, to touch or movement, and perhaps to what's happening in our minds. So we can begin to notice those connections. Great. Now let's take a few rounds of breath together. We can just experiment with a way of breathing that can help to signal to the body and to the nervous system that they are really kind of supported here. So they are able to let go of anything they don't need to hold on to right now. If it's comfortable to rest your hands somewhere around the lower belly, then you could do that, or you could just take your attention there. And then if it's comfortable to breathe through the nose, you can breathe in through the nose and let the breath sigh out gently through the mouth. So jaw can be soft, lips soft. In through the nose and out through the mouth. If breathing through the nose doesn't feel comfortable this morning, then let yourself breathe however you need to find an easier breath. Okay. And then whenever you feel ready, you can gently close the lips again if breathing through the nose is okay. So inviting yourself to breathe through the nose, if that's comfortable for you, will gently support you in lengthening the breath and softening the breath, which can support us in relaxation. But we don't want to force anything around the breath, really. So if that doesn't feel good, you can kind of keep trying it, keep dipping in and out. Use it when it feels useful, let it go when it doesn't. Just let your breath be as easy as it can. And then let's begin with some movement. So if you are resting on your back right now, then I'll invite you to gently find your way up to a seated position, unless you've discovered that what you need today is to lie on your back for an hour, in which case stay where you are and enjoy it. And if you are in a seated position, just notice how you are feeling in that seat. If there's any kind of discomfort or tension in the back or around the hips, you might want a little bit more support. So it's a good idea to sit on a cushion or some bricks, some books, a folded blanket. Anything that raises your hips up a little bit tends to help the lower back to feel better. You could sit with your legs crossed if that's comfortable. You could kneel if that's good for you, or you could extend your legs out. So I'm going to move back a little bit towards my mat so you can see a bit more what I'm doing. Yeah, so have a play around to find the position that's going to suit you best this morning. And I'm going to have this a little higher. Great. And then give yourself that same shuffle side to side so you can connect with the ground again. And then if it's comfortable to bring your hands into contact with your body, you could do that hand to heart, maybe hand to belly, just to get a sense of the kind of softer front part of the body. And then imagine, or maybe if it's useful, actually feel, just another gentle hand resting on the top of your head. And then you can lengthen the crown of the head up into that soft touch. So we're supported by the earth, but we're lengthening up to the sky. And then that top hand can come back down. And then let's rest the hands down and come into some movement for the shoulders. So we're going to bring the shoulders up towards the ears, roll them back and down. Just noticing how that feels, maybe how that sounds this morning. I've got a serious crunch coming through. And then let's rest the fingertips on the shoulders and circle through the elbows. So we're still moving in a way that can help us to connect to the shoulders, but maybe now feeling a bit more through the upper back and the backs of the arms as well. Changing the direction of those circles whenever you're ready. And then have a little shake out through the arms. Imagine that you could shake all the way from your shoulders down through the elbows, through the wrists, and flick off through the fingers. You might do that a few times through the class. Great. And then we're going to bring our attention a little bit lower down towards the belly in the center of the body and see if we can find some circles from there. So depending on the position that you're sitting in, these circles might be bigger or smaller. Just noticing how that feels around the lower back and the hips and respecting any boundaries that are there. Noticing how the breath feels as you circle through the center of the body. And we'll change the direction of the circles in your own time. And coming back towards center, sitting nice and tall. If you've got your legs crossed and it's comfortable to change the cross of your legs, then I invite you to do that just to offer your body a bit of balance. Noticing it might feel quite different on this side. It's probably not your kind of habitual cross. We'll stay here as long as it's comfortable, but you're always welcome to return to where you began. And then let's drop the chin down towards the chest. Just taking a moment to consciously soften the jaw. Notice if that's somewhere that you tend to hold on to. For a lot of us, when we're feeling stressed, we get a lot of clenching in the jaw. Tuning into the sensation in the back of the neck. And then gently, keeping the head heavy, we're going to roll the left ear gently towards the left shoulder. Notice if your shoulder's coming up to meet the ear and see if you can really lovingly invite it to let go. It doesn't need to do any work right now. And then keeping the shoulders relaxed and the head heavy, rolling the chin forwards and then over towards the other side. Again, notice what happens in your shoulder, invite it to soften down. And keeping that movement nice and slow and lazy, just rolling from side to side at your own pace, feeling into the sides and the back of the neck. Noticing if there's anywhere along that journey that you might like to pause for a breath or two. Sometimes there are places where the sensation's a lot stronger, and it can be very interesting or useful to just be with that for a moment and breathe and notice what might change. And then in your own time, finding your way back up to center, nice and tall. Great. And then let's take some movement to connect a bit more with the breath. So just make sure you've got space around you to raise your arms. And turning the palms forward so the shoulders can be a little bit more open, the chest can be a little bit more open. As you breathe in, let's take the hands all the way out and up. And as you breathe out, bringing the hands down through center towards the heart. Expanding with the in-breath. Softening down with the out-breath. And we all breathe at a different pace. So allow yourself time now to tune into the speed of your own breath and move through the whole of the in-breath, the whole of the out-breath. The next time that you breathe in, let's pause there. We're going to keep breathing, but just reaching towards the sky for a moment. Notice how close or far apart your hands need to be for your shoulders to feel really comfortable and easeful. Great. And then let's take a moment to lengthen through the side of the waist. So we're going to imagine that we can reach up, maybe reaching up towards something on a high shelf or climbing a rope if you're incredibly strong. And as you do that, feeling the lengthening coming all the way down through the side of the body. Great, the next time we reach up with the right hand, we'll pause there, bring the left hand down to the earth. Just creeping the left fingertips away gently, softening the elbow, and reaching just enough to feel that nice lengthening through this side of the body. Have an experiment with the position of your head and your neck. Where does your neck feel most comfortable? It might feel good to turn and look under the arm. It might feel good to look down towards the earth or somewhere in between. Taking one more breath here. And then coming back up to center, and we'll change sides. So the right hand coming to the ground, creeping the fingertips away, keeping that elbow nice and soft so the shoulder can relax. Again, experiment with the head. It might be different on this side. So let your body tell you where it needs to be. Let's take one more breath here. And then coming back up to center, having a little roll through the shoulders again. And then coming back to that flicking movement, really releasing all the way down from the shoulders. Often, if things are feeling a bit stuck or held, this can feel quite awkward to do. So the more you can do it, the looser it might become, and the more you might be able to shake out. Great. So then we're going to come into some flexing and arching movements for the spine now. So we can do this either from a seated position or from all fours. If you've been seated and you're comfortable in all fours and you want a bit of a change, then come to a tabletop position. If you prefer to stay seated, then please do. I'll show you where we're going from all fours. So if you are in all fours, just find your hands somewhere comfortably underneath your shoulders, your knees somewhere comfortably underneath your hips, so you've got a nice solid base. You can tuck your toes or you can have your feet flat, see what feels best. And then wherever you are, let your spine be nice and long. Take a deep breath in, and as you breathe out, we're going to connect with the earth and begin to round the spine. So the head gets heavy, the lower belly draws in, and the back of the body rounds either towards the ceiling or towards the back of the room if you're seated. And then in your own time, we're going to gently arch through the spine. So in all fours, the heart moves forward, the face floats gently up, the shoulders move back. And then rounding again towards cat stretch. So taking your time to explore through those two movements. Seeing if you can find a way of moving that keeps things kind of relatively contained. So we don't want to feel a strong, too strong a sensation in either the front or the body, I guess, as we're moving. Want to see if we can keep a little bit contained through the front, a little bit contained through the back. And as you go, just checking in with your breath. How is it now? How is it responding to this movement and this attention? In the next few rounds of breath, you can invite that movement to become a little bit more organic and fluid. So shifting your weight either from a seated position or from all fours. You can allow the spine to move in any direction that feels good. Maybe circling the hips a little bit more. Noticing how the spine, the shoulders, the neck respond to that invitation. Really tuning into your body. These movements might be really big, expansive, expressive. They might be incredibly subtle, might be invisible from the outside. And when you feel ready to bring that to something stiller, we'll make our way towards child's pose. So if you're on all fours, you can bring your hips back towards the heels. They don't need to touch, just as far as they go comfortably. Let your hands drift forwards, let your head rest down. It might rest on the ground, but it might rest on stacked fists or stacked hands or on a cushion or brick, whatever you need to make contact with your forehead. If you're avoiding weight bearing on your wrist, but you think that this might be accessible, you could come here. But if you'd prefer to stay off the wrists altogether, you can find a seated child's pose by just bending the knees and draping yourself forwards. Whichever option you're in, using this as an opportunity to breathe into the back of your body. To notice how far down your back you can feel the breath traveling. And if there are any places that feel a little bit sticky or a little bit held, maybe experimenting with that idea of gentle touch. So we might not be able to actually touch the places on our back that are feeling a little bit sticky, but you can imagine a soft hand resting there, a warm and loving touch. How does your body respond? And when you feel ready to move again, we're going to make our way up gradually towards a standing position. If weight bearing in your wrists is comfortable, you might want to spend a little bit of time in downward facing dog on the way. So grounding through the hands, bending the knees, lifting the hips, keeping the knees nice and bent to slowly ease your way back in here. You could pedal through the feet, sway the hips. And then we're going to meet in a forward bend. So however you need to get there, if you're in downward facing dog, you can pad your hands. If you're avoiding weight bearing, you can just tuck your toes and come back. We're going to keep the knees nice and soft and release ourselves down. If you've got high or low blood pressure, or you're kind of taking care of your lower back today, you might find it more comfortable to be in a halfway position. So resting your forearms on your thighs, long spine, soft jaw. But either option, either halfway or all the way down, Bending your knees enough that you can spread the sensation through the back of your body. So it's not kind of just stuck in one place, really tight, really fixed. But we can bring some ease and lengthening through the whole of the back surface, from the soles of the feet up towards the head. And then when you're ready to move on, we're going to come up to standing. You can either roll up, if that's comfortable for your back, by pressing into your feet and rounding up through the spine. Or if coming up with a flat back will feel better, just gently draw in your lower belly and bring yourself up to stand. Great. So taking your time, finding a standing position that feels nice and stable for you. So have a play around with the distance in between your feet. Notice how it feels to have your feet right close together, really wide apart, somewhere in between, and find the place where you feel kind of most stable and grounded, most supported. So again, we're connecting with that sense of support from the ground. And then take a look down and see if you can lift all your toes away from the ground and spread them out like fingers, and then place them back down on the earth so your feet are a little bit more awake. Lovely. And then experimenting with your balance a bit, see how it feels to lift up through the heels and then to come back down. Just doing that a couple of times to wake up the feet, the lower legs. Great. And then let's take our feet a little bit wider. So we're going to find a nice big kind of squat position. We're going to turn the toes out a little bit so that when we look down, as we bend our knees, we kind of want them to be pointing in the same direction as the toes, ideally. So the hip joints, the knee joints, and the ankle joints are all kind of working together, supporting each other. You can take the feet as wide as feels comfortable. We're going to take the hips back in space. So there might be a bit of a sense that you're sticking your bum out. If you've got that, you're in the right place. And then resting your hands wherever they need to be, just tuning into your legs and noticing if one leg is holding more weight than the other right now. Maybe experiment with shifting a little bit side to side, seeing if you can find some balance between the two. Great. And then let's move again with the breath. So taking the hands down, and as you breathe in, reaching all the way up, lengthening the legs. As you breathe out, sweeping down, knees wide. Inhaling wide, and exhaling strong in the legs. Lovely. And then let's pause at the end of this out breath. You'll be here for a few rounds of breath. So you might not be quite as low as you were when you were moving, so that we can make it sustainable. And maybe bringing your hands towards your legs, just getting a sense of the muscles working for you here, the strength that there is there, the support. Great. Seeing if you might shift your weight even further back, so there's a real sense of weight in the heels. And then when you feel ready to move on, just pressing into the feet to come back up. And we'll squirrel the feet in a little bit. Again, finding that place where you feel most supported and grounded through the legs this morning. Lovely. And then let's come into some gentle twists. So we're going to let our arms be as loose and as relaxed as they can be. So swinging them back and forth, noticing what might be holding on. So if our shoulders are feeling a little bit tight, or the elbows, or even the hands, it can be quite hard to find this loose swing. Great. And then soft bend in the knees, nice and soft. And then we'll take this into a twist if you're not already. So we're just turning the heart from side to side and allowing the arms to swing along for the ride. You might find a little bounce in the knees, feels good with that. Again, noticing how your breath responds. Great. And then slowly coming back towards center. Lovely. And we'll bring our feet so that they're more or less underneath our hips. So we're going to come to another kind of squat position, really working to find the strength and support in our legs. More or less underneath our hips. We're going to point our knees again in the same direction as the toes, and then bring the hips back. So it's like you're sitting back towards a big comfy chair, but we're not going to quite reach it, just on our way, and then we'll pause. So pausing in a place where the legs feel strong, noticing how you feel around your lower belly and your lower back. Ideally finding somewhere where there's a sense of support here. So we're connecting with some strength here. And then see how it feels to bring your hands to your heart with an awareness of what's going on in the lower belly and the lower back. You can experiment with reaching the arms forwards. You might find that your lower back or your belly prefer to have your hands at your heart, so that's a really good option. But if reaching the arms forwards helps you access a bit more of a sense of strength there, then go for that. And then the last piece that we can add on to this, if you would like to, is to move a little bit with the breath. So as you breathe out, sweeping the hands back down towards the hips. And as you breathe in, sweeping forwards, lengthening the spine. So seeing if we can find a way of movement that connects us to strength and support in the body. We don't need to grit through anything that doesn't feel right. And if you're still moving, let's take one more breath. And then coming to stand. And having a lovely big shake through. So especially when you've done something that asks for a little bit more strength from the body, it's nice to have a little shake and a jiggle and a release so we can find softness again. Lovely. And then let's finish our kind of standing work with a balance. So depending on the surface that you're standing on, this can be more challenging if you're on carpet. I'm on a carpet and an extra thick rug, so balance is always quite challenging for me up here. If you've got the option of standing on something flatter if you want to, then do, but I think it's also quite fun to experiment with being on different surfaces. So let's bring our feet right together to begin, spreading the toes, just so that we can gently press the feet and the legs towards each other, so you can feel kind of the inner seam of the legs switching on a little bit. And it's quite subtle, but you might also feel a bit of kind of engagement and support traveling higher up through the center of the body as you do that too. So you might feel it, you might imagine it. And seeing if we can stay hugged in quite tight to this central line of support, we're going to lift the left leg gently away from the ground. So it might just rest a toe on the ground, or it might come all the way up. And then you've got the option to maybe rest the heel on the ankle with the toe still on the ground, or maybe the inner calf, maybe the inner thigh. Choose somewhere that you're still breathing and that you can still find that sense of hugging into the midline. And then if you would like to, you could explore expanding up through the arms, taking them as wide or as close as they need to be to find comfort and ease for the shoulders. Just noticing what's happening with your breath, what's happening around your jaw, the palms of your hands. Let's take one more breath if you're still balancing, and then finding your way down. Taking a moment to stand and notice how things are feeling side to side. And then we'll explore that same pose on the other side, just noticing how it feels on this side. It might be quite different. So beginning, feet together, hugging into the midline. And then gently shifting the weight so that the left leg this time can bear our weight. Maybe heel to ankle, maybe in a calf, maybe in a thigh. You might find that a different option feels best on this side. So trust that. Maybe expanding up through the arms if that felt good. Seeing if you can allow the body to shift and wobble and wiggle. Maybe to tumble right out to find a standing pose again. You can always come back. And let's take one more breath if you're still balancing. And then coming down. Nice big shake out. Have a bounce, have a shake, have a wriggle. Give yourself a moment to notice any thoughts that might come connected to that. I think a lot of my movement practice is moving, and the times when things are stiller and I might be trying a little bit more, trying to balance, there can be different kinds of thoughts connected with that. So just let yourself notice what they are, and then see if you can come back to how you're actually feeling. We might not need to listen to all of the thoughts so hard. So let's make our way down to the ground. We're going to come to a seated position. If you would like to have another flow through downward facing dog, if that's feeling good today, you could come through that. But otherwise, find your way to a seated position, however feels best. And let's come to a twist before we lie down. So again, either kneeling or cross-legged or with the legs wide, whatever is feeling best in your body today to help you feel grounded and tall. And then we're going to bring the right hand, to our heart, and the left hand to the belly. Just giving yourself a moment to connect again with the sense of the breath under your hands. That gentle, loving contact with your hands on your body. And then we'll take the bottom hand, the left hand, up towards the sky. Take a breath in to get nice and tall, lengthening the spine. And then turning the heart gently towards the right, just as far as you go before you meet a little bit of resistance in your body that's inviting you to pause. And then we'll take the top hand, that left hand, down towards the opposite knee or thigh. And then this hand might stay in contact with the heart if that feels good, or you might bring the fingertips to the earth to help you lengthen up a little bit more through the spine. See which of those options feels best. And then allow yourself to settle in. So notice if there might be any tension or gripping in the lower body that you have the opportunity to soften. And notice the subtle, soft movement that comes into your body as you breathe here. So the shape might be fairly still, but there's always movement to tune into. And then coming back towards center. And we'll change sides. So this time we're going to take the left hand towards the heart, right hand towards the belly. Just a moment to breathe and to be with that contact. And then taking the lower hand up towards the sky. Deep breath in. And then turning the heart gently towards the left. Top hand coming down. Maybe the hand that's on your heart finds the earth. That can help us to lengthen through the spine sometimes. Scanning gently through the body to notice anything that might be holding on that doesn't need to right now. And offering that gentle invitation to soften. And then finding your way back towards center. Let's have one more little roll through the shoulders, through the neck, any movements that you need to make. Just checking in a little bit. Some of those same movements that we did at the beginning, how do they feel now? And then we're going to make our way from here towards rest. So if it's comfortable resting on your back or your side today, then find your way into a nice comfy position. Use all of the soft supportive things that you've got to help you be as comfortable as you can. So maybe a cushion under your head, maybe a cushion under your knees. If you're resting on your side, having a cushion to hug onto can be really nice. If you'd prefer to stay seated, that's a really good option. I'm just looking around for a cardie. Yeah, so sometimes it's easier for us to find a sense of being settled when we're upright. So allow yourself to do that if that's the case for you today. It's a really good option. And give yourself a bit of time to scan through your body now and to notice if there are any little shifts or changes you might need to make to be even 5 or 10% more comfortable. Give yourself permission to move how you need to move. Great. And then as we began, see if you can bring your attention now to the parts of your body that are in contact with the earth. From the back of the head all the way down to the feet. You don't need to do anything with those parts of the body. Just really getting a sense of that contact. Allowing your attention to settle in that contact with the earth and noticing how it feels as you breathe. So does the shift from the in-breath to the out-breath change the sensation of contact? Change the sense of support? And staying with the breath if that feels comfortable right now, but remembering that you've always got the option of sounds as well as another anchor if that feels better. Allowing the breath to be just as it is right now, however it needs to be. Aware of the in-breath, aware of the out-breath. And perhaps becoming aware that the breath cycle as a whole is more than just the in-breath and the out-breath. There's an in-breath, pause, an out breath, and a pause. And sometimes those pauses might be so small that we can't even feel them. Sometimes they might be quite obvious to us. And there's no right or wrong about that. If you can feel that pause, or you can imagine a pause, that can be an opportunity for your body to rest deeply in stillness. So we are offering ourselves now the opportunity for deep rest. No need to be or to do anything at all. And over the next few minutes, we're going to rest together quietly. You might find it useful to choose an anchor that you can return to when you need to. So perhaps sounds or the sensations of your breath or your body in contact with the earth. That you might find that just allowing your attention to drift, to rest where it needs to rest, to welcome whatever arises, might be the best option. So rest in the way that you need now. Nothing else to do. And then beginning to become aware again of your breath. Breath right at the center of the body, expanding out towards the edges. And if it feels good, you might take a few breaths a little bit deeper, a little bit more consciously, to bring your awareness right back into the body. And then begin to invite the body to move any way that feels good right now. It might be a really small movement, might be a big stretch. Whatever you need to do to bring your attention back. Might be nice to bring the knees in towards the chest and have a little bit of a rock and a roll. And we're going to make our way gently towards a seated position to close the practice. And take your time. And make sure you feel as comfortable and supported in your seated posture as you can. So cushions or blanket underneath you. And if you are noticing right now that the idea of sitting up is awful, just stay where you are. You're at home, you can stay resting on the ground. So whatever position you are closing your practice in, we'll work our way gently through those few anchors that we've explored already this morning. So just tuning into the sounds to begin with. Sounds inside the room, sounds further away. You might notice that the way that you are with the sounds feels a little bit different now to how it was at the beginning. It might be a little bit easier to connect to that sense of resting in the center as the sounds just come and go. And then bringing awareness, however feels best, towards your body and towards your breath. Inviting some gentle touch with one hand or both hands if that feels useful. Just giving yourself a moment to notice how things are now inside. You might notice body sensations, you might notice feelings or thoughts. And seeing if we can practice just gently noticing and welcoming whatever is here. And then finding a gesture with your hands that helps you bring a sense of completion. So maybe in contact with the body, maybe palms together, maybe resting simply in your lap. And thank yourself for taking the time to practice this morning, for putting time aside to connect with your body, to connect with your breath. And send some gratitude towards yourself and towards the others who have been practicing with you today. And in a moment, I'm going to ring a bell just to bring the practice to a close. See if you can stay with the sound of the bell as much as you can from the beginning all the way to the end.